Welcome to episode 0 of the Sideletters podcast, the weekly B2B insights on film, tech, and future business in Europe, made for professionals and decision makers in the creative economy, such as you. And the Sideletters is a conversation between 3 European producers and their guests, and we're exploring what's going on in the markets, and we share our individual perspectives on that. This is the very first recording, and we promise to improve things such as the sound quality in the coming episodes. It's February 5, and we have a lot to talk about. We're going to speak about the state of independent films and their shifting markets. We're going to speak about new players entering the cinema culture, speaking of the Melania documentary, and what all of that has to do with the industry in Europe. And why all of this matters, thinking about new strategies. I'm Fabian Massah. I'm a producer working in Berlin and Hamburg.
I am Joanna Szymanska, producer working from Warsaw.
I'm Jennifer Sabbah-Immagine. I'm a strategy consultant and what I like to call a co-production doctor, and I'm based in France.
So let's get into this. It's quite a dilemma, and we do not want to give it too much room, but we all feel that we need to speak about the theatrical release of the Melania documentary. It was released last weekend by Amazon MGM in the US and across many territories in Europe, not in France apparently, but we get to that. And while the film's box office exceeded all expectations, grossing around $7 million on the first weekend in 270 locations, and we'll see how that holds in the second weekend, but it did not really work in Europe. For example, opening as the 29th in the UK with a reported £250,000, grossing from 134 screens. It was on 38th in Italy, grossing €180,000 from 150 screens. And in Germany, it was grossing €9,000 from 44 screens. So that's not even a tenth of what has been made in the US, where presumably Trump fans drive the ticket sales. Anyway, we decided that one of us has to watch it. And and Joanna, you went. Joanna, let us know. What did you see? And who was there, if any?
Yes, I was the lucky one to go and see Melania on the big screen. The room was quite empty. It was me and 3 other middle-aged ladies. And in total in Poland over the opening weekend, I think it was around 2,000 people who had seen the film. And I have to say that this idea we had to actually watch Melania and open our podcasts with discussing the film, I feel it was a bit of a gamble, because from one side I thought we will have this laughable film, kind of low-hanging fruit to crack some jokes, to start with a lighter topic, because Melania is like as if Borat was trying to be a serious film, right? So you can't really be serious about a project that is what I would call a branded content film, where Melania Trump is being this ultimate luxurious brand. But having seen it, I have to admit that my perspective has really changed, because what we see on the screen is very disturbing and also very telling image of this new vision of what power is, of what public service is, and also what popular culture has to do with all of that. So bear with me for the next couple of minutes as I recap my notes from the screening. On the surface, the movie is all that you can expect. It's glamour, it's wealth, lots of gold, enormous amount of close-ups on high heels, and everything is big and beautiful, as in Trump reality. But the real message is in what the movie doesn't show, or what it kind of shows almost kind of unconsciously, without realizing, or I would dare to say without caring what it really is revealing. And I'll just give you a few examples. First one is a scene where Melania and Donald are leaving Mar-a-Lago for inauguration weekend. In the soundtrack, we hear "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." And we also see a whole group of staff members sort of seeing them out, in a sort of teary goodbye to the landlord who's leaving for the capital. It has a very feudal, medieval vibe. And Trump ends this scene by addressing them with words, and I quote, "Remember, the customer is always right." It was,
Oh my God.
subversive. It was subversive. It was hilarious, but it also felt very, very strongly in its presence of what power really is. Then at the inauguration itself, a very kind of obvious propaganda move. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris are shown in very unfavorable shots, as if they were in a waiting room, kind of being kept waiting for the royal family, the new family to arrive. And this is intercut with the furniture of Biden family being moved out from the White House. So this is really very basic propaganda on the visual level. But there are kind of serious takeaways from this film as well. A scene that really stuck with me, and not in a good way, in a very disturbing way. The film is basically redeeming the infamous director Brett Ratner, who fell from grace during the Me Too movement, accused of sexual misconduct by, I think, 7+ women. So in the movie he directed, there is this moment when he is driving with Melania, discussing her taste in music, and Billie Jean by Michael Jackson plays, which happens to be Melania's favorite song. And then Bratner sings along the lines, "Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts," saying it's his favorite line, and they sort of both laugh it out.
That's unbelievable.
Yes, it's absolutely unbelievable because it's so blunt, it's so in your face. And and I think it was really shocking also to see I'm sorry for the spoiler for those of you who might want to choose and see Melania.
Oh, I'm sure everyone who listens to this podcast wants to see the film right now.
No, please, guys, go and see it because we have to be aware of what's happening. But the film ends with a photo shoot for the First Lady for her official portrait. And she is, the last moment we see her, she is standing in this kind of girl boss power pose, which almost identically resembles Claire Underwood from House of Cards. And there is Sunny from Bonnie M playing in the background. I mean, it's both hilarious and scary. And what I think is the most difficult for me as a filmmaker to see is that it's a very well crafted image, a very controlled narrative. There is absolutely no doubt about anything, about the politics. There's nothing questioning Melania, the role of First Lady. This movie creates this image that power comes with wealth, with economic status, that there are no other options really, that this is the only way. And that politics is done, over candle-lit dinners with tech barons. And I'm fully aware that propaganda is nothing new. It's like a tale as old as time. And there were many powerful people who have tried to use cinema to shape their image, or cinema or popular culture. But I feel this particular movie we cannot really ignore, and we cannot laugh it off, brush it off with a joke, because it not only kind of is propaganda, it straightforwardly acknowledges it is propaganda, and it is very performative. And I think that what for our podcast and for our discussion is the most interesting thing is about what it tells us today about the culture of producing films and about the reality of documentaries, because Melania has very questionable production ethics. It's a sitting first lady who officially joins the ranks of independent producers with this film. She earned apparently $28 million for making this movie. Amazon MGM Studios put up $35 million marketing budget to spread this message across the globe, and I do see it as a test case, really. I do see it as a warning of how we behave and how do we act and how we create in the world where this political power sort of aligns with tech corporate power. And to open up the discussion and kind of wrap up my review or my resume of the film, I kind of want to throw a question at you, Jennifer, because in Europe we always turn to France when we need help in audiovisual industry. So
Is that true?
yeah, what happened? I mean, is the movie there in France, and how does it play in this discussion that you are now having about what documentary is
Yeah.
really?
hmm Well, no, the film, from what I know, the film won't be released in French cinema because it doesn't comply with the French media chronology laws. It's linked with the delay between theatrical release and platforms like Amazon Prime. So basically, yes, we have a delay to respect, and the film will not comply because I think it will be screened on Amazon Prime quite at the same time. And I think that's where the regulations still matter. We are a country with strong regulations, and sometimes it can be annoying. But I think it's useful. It's useful with such big players. It's useful when we are confronted with that kind of money because it prevents from too much power. But it does not prevent people to see it on the platform. So basically, yes, we still have the issue. I know that currently in France, in FIPADOC, the industry has been thinking about the definition of documentary and how it's used. And in Melania case, it's really vicious, because Melania herself in the opening speech of the premiere, she says this is not a documentary, and few minutes afterward, almost in the same breath, she claims she has redefined the genre, the documentary genre. So that contradiction for me is not accidental. It's really the core of the problem. Because I think, as you said, Joanna, the real issue is not quality. There are obviously production value in this film, but the problem is how we and how the audience will understand the film, and it's his link with media education also. What kind of idea you have of a documentary? Because traditionally the documentary should tell a true story about real world, about real event, about real protagonist. And Melania is real. It's happening in our world. It's in a way the film also informs us about events, present event issues, past, present, and future. It's rooted in reality. I'm sure from what I hear, there is quite an angle of the film, and there is a purpose of the film. And that's the problem.
Exactly. I think this is the challenge because it, of course, shows real events. I mean, she is trying on all these dresses, and then she, appears in all these dresses, etc. But I think that what's scary is that it really presents this very selective vision of the world
Exactly.
and glamorized version of the world. And with people who might not be kind of accustomed to critical viewing of things, this can actually be a very entertaining kind of dynastia vibe, because it's not Succession. Succession was far more troubling. It's dynastia when you see these glamour people, eating very expensive dinners. Like there is a golden egg with caviar cells. Like, guys, this is just watch it for that scene. But it's really shocking that it's so selective and so carefully crafted in the narrative. And for audiences, I think this can kind of also project this vision that this is real, that this is how the world should look like, because there is absolutely zero controversy. There is not a single sentence that questions Melania, her choices, her vision as a first lady, etc. So I think critical reading of this film is something that maybe audiences might not have the kind of capacity to do in a way.
But do you think, I mean, after you saw it, is the European audience maybe more reflected on that, and that's why they don't buy tickets? Or maybe if it comes to the streaming platform, I think in a couple of weeks here, also across markets, also in France then, I believe. Do you believe it gets some echo in Europe, or is it just people just don't care because she's not the wife of a European president, or they find it all ridiculous in a way, and it's just some hardcore fans, maybe they would love it? What's your expectation?
Well, I feel that it will be a hit on when it broadcasts on a streamer on
Even
Amazon.
in Europe.
Even in Europe,
Yeah,
because
I think so. Yeah.
because we are living in this culture that encourages us almost to be kind of intrigued by the glamour. She's a media personality first and foremost, even though she describes herself constantly as a regular citizen. I mean, this is so funny. Trump Tower, everything in gold, and she says, "This is my role. This is my road from ordinary citizen to the first lady." And guys, I mean, and she says it with a straight face. It's crazy, but I do
But
believe
it's
that.
true, huh?
Yeah,
Is it true? I
yeah.
mean, she comes from a middle class, I don't
No,
want
and
to.
no, but she plays this amazing trope
uh,
of a good immigrant, and I think this is also in the context of what everything that's happening in the United States. To release this film now, it's just, and of course, I am, left wing, woke, elitist artist.
that what Melania would say about you. Yeah.
That I'm sure Melania would exactly describe it like this, and I'm sure she doesn't really care what I feel about her film. But yeah, I think this movie is in many ways, also in how it's distributed now, outrageous, really.
I mean, you have the reflection on that, and Jennifer and I, we both didn't see it, and probably would see it the same way. It sounds also it's a bit subversive, in a way, if you look at it this way. I think what's interesting is what Jennifer said, that also there's a discussion going on in France about what can be labeled a documentary, and when we think about what's happening in the European media markets, about other documentary filmmakers trying to get their films done, trying to get them on the platforms, and suddenly they're now competing, maybe not directly with Melania, but they're competing for the attention of the audience with Melania. And they come with a 35 million marketing budget, as you said, Joanna. And this is something, this is for a European documentary, they just don't have this marketing budget. So how do we find the audience for our documentaries, what we define to be a good or quality documentary, when we have to deal with these big budgets of marketing? Is that the discussion that's going on also in FIPA Doc, or is it more about the artistic quality? Can you say a little bit also about FIPA Doc? What is this organization for the listeners who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. The FIPADOC is basically a documentary festival and market. So it's basically the French industry discussing the state of documentary cinema and TV documentaries, because the budgets are tight at the moment, and there are less and less slots for documentary, and people are using the word documentary for anything, for brand content, for influencers, videos. So basically, that was the main discussion, and see if we could find ways of doing this. I think for Melania, it's maybe even another level, because it's really entertainment, so we're fighting something that we already know. I remember I wrote an article from Xan Brooks in The Guardian, and he says it's entertainment where you don't learn anything. You are simply immersed in a world. And that's the danger, because there is the word documentary, but we have immersion without understanding exactly what people want. And so that's the problem of these budgets. And that's also why the film is aimed for cinema release, because it could have been released only on the platform. But cinema is a tool, because it's the industry of dreams. And when I hear Joanna, I mean, I think it's rooted in the film. It's the American dream. It's the story of the American dream. So they use it as a tool of soft power, prestige, and influence, again, as American cinema has always been doing. And I think, the issue is how you consider it as propaganda. I think the critic, the press, and we have to speak about this subject, because I also read on Vanity Fair that all the money in the world cannot buy good propaganda. But yes, and that's the problem. Money can buy theaters, it can buy promotion, and it can buy good propaganda, and that's the real issue. And
if I can add something to this, Jennifer, because I think what we are doing right now, and this is also why we had this discussion before we recorded this episode, whether we should give exposure to Melania or not, is this, kind of Barbara Streisand effect, that if this movie was labeled propaganda and, let's say, banned, that would even give it more of more reason and more effect, kind of reaching out more audiences. So I don't think, because we use this word, how do we fight this? How do we protect our little kind of craftsy, artistic content we produce? But I think that I would rephrase this question, and I would say, what do we learn from this? Because there is, I think, a great lesson. And I know, Fabian, you want to address it, so I'll just bring it up. There, this last weekend, next to Melania, there was this very independent film, Iron Lung, that also ended in top 3 of US box office. And I feel that both Melania and Iron Lung are great examples of understanding your audience, of speaking directly to your audience. And if I was to maybe redirect our conversation towards more of an optimistic or kind of practical outcome, is how do we reach our audiences in this world where the content is so individualized and the marketing channels are also so fragmented? Because we can do it. I believe we can really do it.
These are great examples. So we wanted to come to that because it was kind of a duality in the press last week. So there was I think a very interesting opinion piece written by Sharon Waxman. She's the editor-in-chief of the Wrap, and she published it in the New York Times. And she's writing about the death of indie film. She's sharing some takeaways. She overheard some bar conversation with Christine Vachon and, like independent film legends, and they're very active and very good producers actually, and they speak at Sundance about like the business model is dead and where it's going and stuff like that, so it's very interesting. I just recommend, we're gonna put the links also in the show notes so you can read it. So, but we have this article about the death of indie film, and at the same time we have two independent films in the top 3 of the US charts. I mean, you said at the beginning, Joanna, Melania, it's an independent production. There's not a commission work. There's not a studio behind it. They produced it, and the platforms were bidding for it. I mean, bidding as far as bidding can go. I mean, they know it's the president wives and like the tech companies. Maybe Amazon wants to sell more toilet paper, so they, and not only that, but also they want to have a good impression with the president's couple. Anyway, the top 3, we have these 2 films, and actually they are both independent films. Iron Lung is produced and helmed, and I think he's even a main character. He's playing the main character by Mark Fischbach, who is a YouTuber. And he made this film for reportedly less than €1 million, and he's distributing it himself. He's using a booking and billing service, and he does it all by himself. So the question that we as independent filmmakers, we have to see these dualities, the old business model is dead, maybe a new business model is coming, but they're also very different. Jennifer?
Yeah, but Fabian, you're talking about business model, and there is the definition of a business model. Okay, you're independent in terms of money, of studios, and this film is not really independent because it has been sold by a major studio. And there is the definition of, artistical indie cinema. Indie cinema has always been radical. It exists to disrupt, to question, to fight dominant ideas, to shake things, to destabilize what we feel fixed. Indie cinema has never been about comfort, it's about friction. And you mentioned Christine Vachon. I mean, she's the goddess of queer cinema, and queer cinema in particular has always challenged the norms. It's questioned identity, power, desire, representation, whether or not they are in a business model or not. It refused easy narratives. It refused to behave. So, I mean, if we think that we are dead, okay, so we have nothing to say. So
we can misbehave. When we are dead, we can misbehave.
Exactly. So, I mean, if propaganda today use even the tools of the business model of indie cinema, of spectacles, money, and entertainment, then our response cannot be nostalgia. I mean, we just have to defend old models and to defend indie cinema, and we have to invent maybe a new one, and one that keeps its radical soul, but has the means to reach a new generation. That's maybe the challenge,
Sorry, can that be combined? That's the question. What do you think? I mean, the way of making films, the way we want to do it, like you said, like daring, about friction, but taking parts of the business model that these 2 films are showing. But what do you think, Jennifer?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think Christine Vachon is a very good example because she has used the business model. I mean, she has used some studio to distribute her film, and that didn't prevent her from making radical cinema and indie cinema. And I think if we look at the American indie cinema of the 70s, of the 80s, I mean, of course, they were making business negotiation, business transaction, business alliance with studios, and they were also dealing with big money. But the spirit was independent. And I think that's what we have to find again. I mean, to have to connect, to reconnect ourselves to this, with a language, of independent cinema that doesn't imitate power, but that confronts power. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's a battlefield of imagination, of creativity. I mean, we have to fight. We have to be closer to reality, closer to our audience. The problem is promotion, maybe. It's marketing. How do we reach a new audience? But I'm sure there
Jennifer,
is a new audience for that.
I have to cut it here. I have to cut it here because for me it's also we are discussing America because of course they are the hegemon, the dominant market, etc. I don't know. We have a rule we can swear, but I don't want to swear. But fuck
Oh,
this.
you
I'm
can. You
sorry.
can. It's all for grown-ups here.
I'm sorry. Like, let's just think of where we are today. Like, what are the strengths we have? Because I am a huge advocate of European cinema, of the diversity of European cinema, of the quality of European cinema. I mean, we have such an amazing pool of talent. Our stories, the stories we tell in Europe, are not formulaic. They are rooted in the reality. They are interesting. It's not like you're turning on your player or you go to the cinema and you watch the same Marvel shit, for the 28th time. You actually encounter a new story every time you watch a European film. So I would say that we should really redefine the frame we refer to. Like, why don't we say, why do Americans don't copy us? Why are we trying to be so sort of reliant on this old power of Hollywood that I'm sorry to break it to you guys, Hollywood is dying. It's not that we are dying. We are resilient and agile,
The thing
that's
is,
the thing.
like, American cinema was always inspired by European cinema. I mean, many talents are going over there. Some they get inspiration from storytelling, and this is the spice that's coming from here. But the way they do it often is like they make a big production out of it and a big marketing engine behind it because it's business driven. They have to make their money back. It's a hit business. So that's why maybe they're more clever in marketing. And you brought this up, I think, both of you, to speak about how do we find the audience? I totally agree with what you say. The filmmaking is more diverse here. It's more interesting. But I often have the feeling that they don't really know who they're making these films for and how to reach these people.
Yeah, maybe this is something we should really work on more. And also, I think as independent producers from Europe, I would say we are accustomed to being in discomfort, of discomfort of financing, of insecurity, of whether the film will get made or not. And I think this actually, we should turn this into our strength, that we can maybe work with smaller budgets, smaller crews on topics that are more radical. And we have to also have acquire or adapt, become more media savvy. Like, okay, I am not on social media. That's everybody knows that I am kind of out of Facebook and Instagram.
But you're on LinkedIn.
Oh yes,
But that's a professional social media.
and that's also a source of a lot of jokes. But this aside, we as producers, we really need to be aware where the audiences are, because I believe even the nichest of and the most radical of European films will find its audience. I mean, there are how many 450 million potential viewers in Europe, and I'm quite sure that there is 100K or 200K who would watch a small art house film from Poland or Slovakia or Lithuania if they were aware of this. And we need to really become these people who know how to reach the audiences, find them, I don't know, track them somehow, because big corporations are doing that. And this is where the regulations come in place, and policymakers who are listening to this, go to your desks now and draft laws to allow us to access the data. Data is what we need.
So on a positive note, Jennifer, what do you think? Could that be a new push for a golden age of independent film, now seeing these two more mainstreamy films but produced independently, and the way they did it? Could that be an inspiration?
Sure, I'm more optimistic, and I think we are in a comfort zone still in Europe, and we have to go out of this comfort zone and to think beyond the box. It reminds me of a producer I met this summer from Kenya, June Waregi. She created her own platform. It's called Rafu TV, and she started to produce and to distribute and to screen her film herself. So basically, she has her her own platform, and it works well. I mean, she really created her own business model, and so she's a very indie producer from Kenya, and she managed to do it and to create a business model and also to create really a creative model. So I'm sure we can find ways, if we feel frozen, we're never going to go nowhere.
If we feel frozen, we should let it go.
Yeah.
See, that's the impact on the culture. So, but I totally agree. There's a lot of innovation and inspiration coming also from other continents, not only the US. Like there's a lot of going on in the African markets, and we come to that in some of the later episodes also. I want to make a special on that as well. And in Asia also, Vietnam, there's a lot going on there. And if you look there, how they market films, how they in a super capitalistic way where there's no public funding and they have to make money. There's a lot of pressure on filmmakers and the whole economy there, the whole creative economy, and how they master it to find their audiences. And it's still a hit business. So you have some films that tank and some films going to be hits, but it's all over. It's healthy,
Yeah,
and this is where we can find it. And and we're going to see how it plays out. I mean, as the European film market is coming up next week, and I'm really interested to see a lot of films there, like meet people like you and everybody else to discuss what's going on. But I'm also quite optimistic that, there's a new energy there right now to do things a bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Jennifer was really right saying that we have to stop being so comfortable. And I think I would treat Melania as a really, really strong wake-up call that not only get out of your comfort zone, disregard the box and just really stand up for what you want to do and what you want to put out there as a filmmaker, because this is the power we have. We can make films. We still can make films.
Great. We can shape the culture. Fantastic. And you're doing it too, Joanna. You have a film at the Berlinale. Tell us a few words about it. It's in competition, right?
Yes. I'm very, very proud of this project. It's called Dust. It's directed by Anke Blonde. It's produced by Dries Villa from A Private View. It's a Belgian film co-produced by Poland, Greece, and UK. And you can watch it in competition. It premieres on Sunday evening. So be there.
Fantastic. Great. So that's it for today. Thanks to my co-host Joanna Szymanska and Jennifer Sabbah-Immagine. Make sure you follow our community on LinkedIn. That's simply the Sideletters. You will find it there. And see you next Wednesday when we will be back with B2B insights for the creative industries in Europe. Thanks, guys.
See you next week.
Thanks. See you next week. Bye.